Welcome to the podcast. Now, today is going to be an awesome interview, and it's because the guest today is not only one of the world's most recognized and established elite arm wrestlers, but he's an awesome guy as well. I'm talking about, of course, Toddzilla Hutchings, a multiple world champion. He's been in the top ranks of the world for about 13 years now. So let's get Todd on the line. Here we go.
Hello?
G'day, Toddzilla. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. Todd, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, we have multiple world champion here, Todd Hutchings, Toddzilla, better known as. Mate, you've been in this sport for about 13 years in the professional sense. You've done so well. I would love to kick it off today, mate, if it's okay, with hearing your story about how you found the sport of arm wrestling.
It was back in either 1999 or early 2000. I was actually just Googling. Well, it wasn't Google, it was Yahoo. Google wasn't around yet. I was just looking for archery tournaments, and a local arm wrestling tournament popped up, and it was just hey, I remember that in high school. Let's go try that. So
Nice.
then I was nervous about looking foolish in front of my friends and neighbors, so then I found another arm wrestling tournament farther away, which was earlier, just to go practice, because I didn't want to, get completely destroyed in my first tournament. So yeah. I went and found one surrounded by strangers as my first tournament.
How did you go in that first tournament, just out of curiosity?
I believe I won one hand and got second in the other hand. But back then in Michigan, the right and left-handed weight classes were different.
Yep.
I think I won left hand and got second right hand, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there you go. And Todd, was that in the year, I believe it was year 2000 that you looked up that tournament? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that would have been. It was early 2000. I might have been searching it in the end of '99, but it was somewhere in 2000 when I basically started.
I'm curious. Todd, do you still pick up the odd bow and arrow and go to the archery range?
No, arm wrestling. I used to do a lot of hunting and that kind of stuff, but between a full-time job and basically almost a full, as much as you can be a full-time arm wrestler, there's not a whole lot of time left if you got a wife and children on top of everything.
Yeah, Absolutely. Absolutely. Todd, one of the unique things that I've read about your start in the sport was that the age that you started. You were kind of discovered it at age, 30, and then you were kind of at the world elite level by age 35. That in itself is... Yeah, please go on, yeah.
Yeah, I started at 35.
Oh, wow.
And arm wrestled for a year in Michigan and then moved to South Carolina, and that's where I got into a good team of, national and world level pullers. And I think it was 3 or 4 years after I was in South Carolina, so I would have been 38, 39 by the time I, was a national level, maybe, at the outside of it, international level puller.
Yeah. Because that's, I think, one of the most inspiring things about your story, because I know for so many people who discover the sport of arm wrestling, they ask themselves, am I starting too late in the sport? But you're the best example on the planet of the fact that it doesn't matter if you're starting at that age, because you've obviously dominated. So what's been the secret to that for you? The training approaches, have they been anything extraordinary? Or
Yeah. Well, what probably happened was, since I got in with pro level pullers early, I didn't spend any time at the amateur level to speak of.
Yeah.
And there really wasn't amateur classes back then. There was just tournaments. This was before all these big money art leagues showed up, where all of a sudden they started dividing people into amateur and pro. Yeah. And then, not having years of do-it-yourself arm wrestling training, I also met in South Carolina. The gym I joined was an actual powerlifting gym, and it was run by a world-class power lifter. So, he knew how to get strong. So I didn't fall into like a lot of bodybuilding routines or a lot of cardio routines. It was just straight how to put up big numbers on the bench and squat. So adapting that to arm wrestling, allowed me to get strong probably quicker than other folks would have.
Yeah. But I think I actually think that when I look at the sport of arm wrestling, it feels to me like the peak age of arm wrestling is around that 40 years old. Would you agree with that, given your experiences in the sport?
It certainly is in my part of the world.
Yeah.
The Soviet bloc countries, they tend to peak younger.
Yeah.
And they don't stay as much, because like when you start going over to Poland and pull, all the best American arm wrestlers and all the best Western arm wrestlers all are in their upper 30s and low 40s, and all the best like former Soviet pullers are like in their late 20s.
Yeah. It is interesting. I mean, I think do you put that down to those Soviet nations, I guess, being able to afford more time at a younger age than as you said, people like yourself who maintain a family and a career as well?
It might be that, or it might just be since those of us that can't be an actual full-time arm wrestler, it just takes longer to get there. Yeah. But once you're 40, if you've been training since, if you start in your 20 years is a long time to strengthen them bones and put a lot of muscle on the body. So 40 is not too old for a strength sport, for an anaerobic strength sport.
Yeah. And as you get older, obviously tendons stiffen, and I think stiff tendons are an amazing thing in an arm wrestle. It feels like even if you're the same strength as a young guy's tendons kind of feel like rubber bands, where an old guy's tendons feel like they're made of chain or something. So, yeah, I think it's
right. Awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. So Todd, you started dominating the sport about 3 to 5 years into the journey for yourself. You had some amazing matches, early days matches with John Brzenk, and you were one of the first people. I remember there's that iconic video over there with Travis commentating where you really put it to John. Tell us about that moment where and I think you got unlucky in the calls as well, where they pinned it. They called it a pin for John. But tell us, what was it like to match up against John back in those early days?
That was first it was awe-inspiring because it was only a few months prior to that where I'd first met John at a tournament. So, I was still in hero worshiping mode. I got pictures of John holding my little kids and, shaking his hand and stuff. And when you and back then, for the first 2 or 3 years, I didn't really, the first year or so, I never heard of John Brzenk or Cobra Rhodes because I'm just pulling local tournaments. So when you first start hearing about this guy, you go, there's no way somebody can be that good. And then you find him, and this was when John was running like a question and answer, like a blog on the internet. And you started reading about him, and it was like, holy smokes, how could... And, my goals at the time was just to win my state championship. That's all I wanted to do. I figured I'm 35. If I can win the state championship, I could quit and keep that trophy. And then I met John. That was at the Harley Pull. And, he won that one, I believe. So then when that was only the second time I met him was in Vegas when we pulled that one time.
Yep.
And it, just things kind of lucked out, John pulled 2 weight classes and he, not hearing of me, so he's probably underestimating me and I'm overestimating myself probably. So.
Well, I think you certainly arrived that day. I mean, obviously that was, the internet wasn't what it is today and that people didn't get to see it globally, but I think those who did witness that at the time and it was obviously great video footage of it. I think you shocked Travis. I remember listening to his commentary. He was like, Toddzilla has arrived. This guy is the real deal. Because at the start of the match, Travis was saying nobody under 200 pounds pins John Brzenk. So it was an awesome match. I'd love to ask you about some of the other rivalries that you've got. You've obviously got your North American rivalries with people like Craig Touye, but then you've got that the people like Rustam Babayev as well. Where do you have the most hunger in terms of rivalries at the moment?
I would like to pull Rustam again,
Yep.
but I'm pretty sure he's out of my reach for at least a year or so. That is a phenomenally strong, fast man right there. That's a whole other level of arm wrestling, you know.
Yeah.
And it's pulling people in. You know, I practice a lot of different people, so you feel a lot better than you do, you know, in an actual competition. But there's a competitive aspect of it. You know, there's being a really, really good arm wrestler, and then there's just being a really, really good competitor. And that's where John really set himself apart, because there are probably people, you know, throughout John's life, at least since I've known him, who could probably have beat him.
Yeah.
But really nobody won tournaments like he did. You know, he just flat knew how to, his ego didn't get in the way of him winning tournaments.
Yeah.
Where a lot of us, you know, we don't want to drop a match, or we take things too personally, and you drop matches or you lose tournaments that were probably winnable.
Yeah.
Had you been, say, you know, looked at it more intelligently, maybe.
Yeah, I would say that you're one of the better tournament pullers, definitely coming out of North America. I mean, definitely your dominance on the right arm for the WAL has been nothing short of spectacular. And even on the left arm, you're always right there at the finish as well. Do you prefer the tournament style or the supermatch format?
I can prepare for each.
Yep.
The supermatch format, where you stay on stage the whole time, that's probably the trickiest format for me, as opposed to, like, if they were running 4 super matches and they ran one round for each of them and then went back. So, because, you know, back-to-back super matches with a minute between, that's like one long match, whereas tournaments, and it goes, I don't know. The double elimination tournaments are frustrating because second and third never really gets properly defined. And then the way the WAL would run a double elimination tournament where they split the bracket, that you could be the second best puller. You could be the best puller, lose to the second best guy, and now you can't get better than third. You know? So
it is interesting the way that the WAL have kind of redefined the sport in some capacities, and obviously they've now evolved with the Supermatch series as well. But you're someone. I mean, we touched about it before, saying that it's difficult to make a full-time career of arm wrestling. I think you're one of, hopefully with avenues like the WAL, you're getting. How close are you to being able to call yourself a full-time arm wrestler these days?
Well, the money ebbs and flows. The last 5 years have been excellent for me. Prior to the WAL's first year, when I was in the UAL, before that, I think the most I'd ever won, gross winnings in a year, was about $9,000.
Yeah.
And then with the UAL, and then 4 years of the WAL, you know, I had one $40,000+ year, and I had a lot of $10,000 to $15,000 years, but it's nowhere near approaching my salary as a master degree mechanical engineer, mind you, but way more than, say, if I was a manager at a fast food place. You know, I could probably be full time if that was my job, but my mom paid a lot of money for my college, so I'm in no danger of replacing that salary.
Oh, that's good. Look, I'd love to know how you go around fitting in life with, as you say, being a master degree engineer, mechanical engineer. Is it correct that I've seen different social media posts that have talked about the fact that you get up bright and early every morning, you go to bed late at night, and you train either side of your day? Is that the routine that Toddzilla trains with?
Yeah, I have a lot of different routine, a lot of different training regimens, and I change them after each tournament. But I've always gotten up at about 4. That's pretty much been a mainstay. I'm currently training about 10, 10 to 10 to maybe 10 to 12 times a week is what I do. I'll train 5 days for sure at early morning, and then 3 to 5 days, say, in the afternoon.
Yep. I'd love to ask as well, Todd, your style of arm wrestling, it's very much, it's famous for being brutally strong and just resilient, never say die sort of approach to your matches. Does your training reflect that style of approach as well?
Yeah, I'm very strength and power focused, and not so much on technique.
Yep.
And that all stemmed from when I first got into the sport. Like you said, at 35, people are thinking that's old. I'm thinking I have 4 or 5 years to win a state tournament. Mm-hmm. I can't, you read the John Brezink post or any of the Cobra Rhodes, all these people that they've been arm wrestling for 10 or 15 years honing their craft.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm 35 and I did that, I'm going to be 55 before I'm as good as they were 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't spend a whole lot of time learning all the ins and outs. I just got to get strong enough to not lose, and then lucky enough to win a match or two.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's awesome, because I know it's you are the standout arm wrestler on the planet when it comes to just sheer side pressure. I know that the different people I've spoken to, Justin Bishop, he talked to me after the super match that I had with him. He said that if Justin was a 5 out of 10 on side pressure, you were a 15 out of 10 on side pressure. So he was. I know there's a lot of respect globally on just your sheer side pressure and your overall strength. So I think you're doing it well. But I mean, technique wise, you actually pull incredibly well as well. I when I first came to the sport, and I think a lot of people, when they first observe you, they think that you're pulling ugly, that you're not necessarily using your hand. But now that I understand the sport a little bit more, I think that you pull incredibly well through the thumb, particularly if you're going outside, and you obviously hook incredibly well as well. Do you spend time analysing that top roll that you use with your wrist slightly back?
I've spent years trying to learn how to top roll, and I've had very good top rolling coaches. And I'm slowly sneaking into being able to pull outside consistently. Yeah. But the powers, I'm very comfortable. I'm very comfortable giving the hand up and just getting the shoulder behind it. Yeah. But for the last 3 or 4 years, I trained my hands a lot more than I ever have. Yeah. But I trained them. I think I trained them incorrectly for years. Mm-hmm. I did, grippers and the monster grippers and small handled pull-ups and stuff like that. And now I'm trying to train wrist curls where the fingers aren't clenched. Mm. They're kind of relaxed, just to try to wrist curl through the palm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. Todd, one question that we definitely have to touch on is the bicep tear that happened on the left arm. I think I've never seen it before. I don't know if it's ever happened before in the world of arm wrestling, quite in the fashion that yours did. But tell us about the way and how you actually tore that bicep whilst holding the peg.
Yeah, I was practicing with Marcio, and we were in a hook, and wow, is Marcio. I've never pulled Marcio. I've pulled Marcio several times in my life. I've never pulled Marcio who was this strong. And I drove to Maryland going, I'm freaking fast today because I've never been stronger. And he was, we're in a deep hook, and he's pulling me over, and my arm wasn't opening up. But, I was actually, when he was pulling me over, I was bending at the torso, and my left arm, what probably happened is I might not have been fully warmed up because I had pulled 4 or 5 people prior to Marcio, but I had long periods of downtime, in between, so I probably cooled off. But my left arm was completely straight, and then Marcio, surged. And if your arm's straight, you can't. It doesn't have any give. So, You know,
Yeah, well,
it's like when you're fishing. You know, so if you're fishing and your pole goes straight, they can snap that line. Well, the tendon's the line on my fishing arm pole. So.
There you go. Well, it surprised us all, that's for sure. I know, obviously it surprised yourself too, I think. And how did the surgery go? And how's the recovery?
It went well. Yeah, that happened on a Saturday. I went in and had the surgery that Wednesday. It's been a couple of weeks. They've taken the staples and everything out. Doctor still doesn't want me to put any more than 5 pounds on it. So I'm training my right the best I can.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just hoping that they say, when I tore my right, you know, about 6 years ago, and I think I'm pretty sure I remember the doctor saying that after the stitches were out and, you know, a week or two later, he goes, your arm's basically as strong as it's ever going to be. So go ahead and start training it. Yeah. I'm waiting for that to happen on my left.
You've got a bit more of a conservative doctor this time, but
yeah. I told him, I said, I need this back together. I gotta compete in June.
Yeah.
And he just shook his head, and I go, wow. He was probably saying, only a fool thinks they're arm wrestling in June. Yeah. And I said, you have no idea what kind of fool you're dealing with.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So
this was funny. Oh, wait, this is a funny story. So I go in to meet the surgeon, and because, you know, I don't have a family doctor. So he grabbed my left hand, and then he grabbed with his hand, and then he grabbed like my elbow, and he said, here, try and flex your arm. Yeah. And I thought he just wanted to know if I could move it. So I pulled it, you know. Yeah. And I basically bicep curled his hand. He goes, oh, okay. And I was trying to twist it, and then he held my hand, and I just pronated into it, and he goes, well, you can obviously you obviously can overpower me, which is surprising considering your biceps tore. Yeah. And I was thinking, dude, you have no idea how bad I could overpower you. Yeah. I thought he just wanted to know if my elbow would move. I didn't know we were competing.
You're about to arm wrestle, ready to go. Oh, that's gold. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a different breed of human. I think when we look at so many doctors and they're used to nursing people back to health, and they come up across someone like yourself, and you're just beasting them everywhere. But that's awesome. Well, I hope that does recover well for June. Do you feel like it'll be on track for June personally?
I think I can take enough over-the-counter ibuprofen that I will be fine in June. You know, my plan is I'm just not going to grip that peg really tight with all I got to do is touch the peg. Yeah. So I'm just going to put my little finger around it and pull that way. Oh,
that's gold. So, Todd, I'd love to know, look, at age 48, what remain the goals for you within the sport, and where to from here?
It was when I got to 40. That's when they started developing. That's when arm wrestling got back on TV in America. They were making the Pulling John movie. So now my goals were, hey man, I want to get on TV and I want to be in John's movie. You know? And then Travis started one of his many leagues. So there's always bigger money coming in. Yeah. So, and that's where it was. But since I was 40, I think I've quit 3 times. You know, I think I've actually quit and left arm wrestling. Then the money comes back and I jump back in it. So,
it is
I quit after I tore my right arm, to be honest. I mean, when I tore my right arm in 2012, I quit that year.
Wow.
You know?
And how many world titles since then?
Well, you know, there's lots of leagues, so yeah. But I've got every right-handed hammer, the W, so I got all of those.
Nice. Yeah, well, that's pretty amazing. Well, so I have no doubt that it's a hard sport for anyone to get rid of, especially like you said when more money keeps coming back to the table. So I guess realistically we're gonna see you indefinitely keep pulling until you either fall apart or the money dries up. Is that the case?
That's exactly the case. And typically these leagues last 3 or 4 years before they implode. Yeah. So, you know, WAL 2.0's got 3 more years before we're all stranded in Vegas again. So, you know, I'm good for that ride, that's for sure. Then I'll pick my bow and arrow back up.
Yeah, fantastic. Good stuff. Well, Todd, look, mate, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear your story and just hear about everything that you're doing within the world of arm wrestling. You are 100% one of the all-time greats in the sport. So, mate, I really do appreciate your time.
Well, you're very kind, and thank you for calling. It was my pleasure. I enjoyed doing it.
No worries. Thanks, mate. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, Toddzilla Hutchings, you heard the stories there, some amazing history in the sport of arm wrestling there, and plenty more to come too from him as well as he looks to continue dominance in the WAL and hopefully get his revenge on Rustam Babayev. But guys, thank you so much for watching. I'd love it if you hit the like button and the share button. Alright, cheers guys.